All right, in this video, we're going to be talking about the product life cycle. So this happens with every single market and every single product. So this is going to be an important business fundamental because it's going to affect what you can expect your competitors to do and the market to do in the future, as well as set you up for success by being able to predict what's going to happen in the market. You can put yourself, because you're going to be 2 to 4 months behind as you're doing your sourcing decisions. So you can make sure that you can kind of analyze that market and predict where it's going to be so that you can be where you need to be in the future to be able to be competitive. So a lot of people will be stuck and they're looking at the market right now, but they're not looking at where it's going to be in the future, and that's their downfall. So we're going to go quickly over what the product life cycle looks like for just in general, and then what you can expect and where the most profitable parts of the product life cycle are. Okay, so basically, for those who don't know, the product life cycle is essentially every market is going to grow. All right. And so when it's in this first introduction phase, there's not too many people. There's essentially a graph of the adoption of a market. Let me pull that up. Okay, so this is just from Wikipedia. And so this applies specifically to technology, but this kind of happens with everything that is new or changes to a market. So there's going to be a certain percentage of people which are going to be the first ones to pick up on this. So the innovators, basically they're always going to be trying out the things that are new. And then there's the early adopters, okay? And then eventually we get to the early majority, the late majority, and the laggards. Now, each group of people that joins the market in these are very different. So let's look at protein powder, for example. It started out more with just a smaller niche of the fitness people and the people who particularly needed it. But then it became more popular and science came out, and then all of a sudden it got started to be marketed to all these different industries. So that's just something that happens as it gets adopted over time. So if we go back and look at the product life cycle here, there's the introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. So we're going to quickly go over each one of these. And I mean, you don't need to do this for your exact market, but just have it in mind so that you can expect and know where you think that you are in the market. And so that way you're going to be able to preemptively plan for any things that might come up in the future. So essentially in the introduction, I'll leave a link to this too in the video. So prices are going to be higher. There's not going to be as much innovation. And so this is essentially the prices are higher because it's rewarding those who have come to market. And there's not too much innovation, okay? Now, what happens is it's a simple supply and demand at the end of the day. If it's a new market, it's unproven. So there's a lot more production cost. And there's a lot more risk. So it's not proven that this is going to be a big market, but then it starts to blow up. And that's when it gets into the growth stage here now. And essentially what's going to happen here is pricing will still pretty much stay the same, but it's going to segment out and everybody's going to start to add more features and market it to different groups of people as there's more people coming in. They all are different niches, or different types of people. So it starts to get segmented out. And then it will come to the maturity stage. And this is going to be when it's at its peak. And this is probably the most dangerous time because everybody's rushing in. Everybody saw it in the growth stage and then tried to rush in, but then it might get to maturity stage. And now, so if you've done nothing to add value at this point and everybody else is jumping in, everybody's going to bid higher for the PPC costs. Other people are going to have the same value prop as you. So this is where if you're getting into the maturity stage, it's really important to have that niche of people. And then I do suggest that everybody goes and reads this, just if you're not familiar with this business concept. So then eventually it gets to the declining stage. So this is when the market is come and gone and now there's less and less buyers, but everybody got priced out and went out of business or just moved on with the maturity stage. And so there's less suppliers, there's less buyers, but eventually the buyers kind of end up outstripping the suppliers in certain scenarios. And that's where I see a lot of money to be made. So essentially the big takeaway from this video in the introduction phase, in the growth stage, if you get in here early and you differentiate and you grab that part of the market, you can really build a brand within this niche and get your true loyal fans, and you could have the potential to make a huge brand, especially if it is a market that has got legs, such as protein powder. Imagine being one of the first ones. If you would have got in and you had just like the cleanest, best source protein, like let's say Bulletproof with Dave Asprey. He's made a killing in the nootropics and the just the human optimization supplements, and he got in there before the market hit maturity. So now, I don't even know if it has hit maturity yet, but he got in here right about in this introduction and growth stage. So he solidified and has just made a massive I don't even know how many hundreds of millions of dollars Bulletproof is worth, but I love it. So if you guys haven't checked out Bulletproof, go do it. So you have the ability to build a true big brand here. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, as a market is dying, you can come in and there's still customers that need to be served, but people are exiting and not taking care. So over on this end, at the decline, you could come in and potentially capture those customers who are underserved, because let's say as it's declining, there might be new features or markets that need to be marketed to, because consumer tastes and technology is always changing, or just the consumer's needs, but it's a declining market. So suppliers aren't as interested in coming into this when there's all these other people in the market already who already have market share, but there is that consumer who's like, well, come on, I want something innovated here, or I want something different, or there's a way you could provide value, and nobody's wanting to do it because it's on the decline. So I've been on this, and I experienced this personally with Radio Shack because I got to see all this stuff at the end of the market. And for example, when you're trying to connect a Xbox to a old like standard tube TV, there's not really good products to do that, or to connect newer electronics to these older televisions. And there's still people with TV antennas on top of their roof, and that market actually needed quite a bit of innovation. So it got all the way down to, I think, 2 suppliers, but there's still quite a bit of people buying. So I was able to be selling these antenna rotators for like 4 times what I bought them at Radio Shack, because they had stopped manufacturing them 14 years ago, but there was still quite a demand. And there was like 2 options. So people were still buying it. All right. So in summary, just be aware of what stage you think your market is in, and go look and realize that in the introduction and growth stage, you can have the ability to build a true big brand. But at the end of the market, the consumer isn't served all the way. And you could come in and there's potentially some arbitrage or opportunities to add. But essentially, as time goes on, you're going to need to provide more and more value instead of getting the first mover advantage and just, kind of benefiting because you were the first person in there and you started ranking and, you did a good enough job. But as time goes on, you need to add more value and offer better products. So definitely take into account this business principle. And I hope that you guys find and are able to create a brand at a growing niche, or serve an underserved niche, wherever it is, whatever stage it's at. So one other extremely important factor to be taken into account with product lifecycle is that it is not the same for every market. Some can last for 20 to 50 years, whereas others may only last for 8 months, such as the fidget spinner. Now, this is one of the most famous cases, and it started to peak about here in February. It got started, it peaked in April, and then was done by October, November-ish. So this was the example of a fad that took over the entire nation in the United States of America. But this is what you can expect with a fad. So if you're going into something that is potentially a fad, just be very careful. Now, how would you determine if it's a fad? Well, if you take a look at my Google Trends video or some of the other videos, we'll link them below. But essentially, whenever anything goes parabolic, it is going to do this. So another great example of this is Bitcoin. You could just see that it went parabolic, so it's quite obviously a fad. And this is definitely something that happens now with the internet, just because of how social media derives so much of demand generation around certain things. Well, this one may be a little bit counter because Bitcoin does have utility. There's actually a different curve that's explained. So I do have to say that there is this concept with technology specifically, that there is a peak of inflated expectations that comes specifically with technology, where it's like, wow, this is going to change the world. And then we come back to reality, and then eventually it comes back and actually does provide the value. So I'm guessing that most people who are private labeling are not going into technology, but you can see this happened to Bitcoin, happened with the internet back in the late 1990s, and it's happened with virtual reality. Let's see, virtual reality. Yep, you'll see the same thing. And now you could expect that virtual reality will pick up if it proves to be useful, but some are just fads, such as 3D TVs. Everybody thought it was going to change the world, and it just really didn't. So take that into account. Now, there's also things that are more mega trends. So these are going to be scenarios where they're providing utility, or it's more of a lifestyle, okay? Something backed by science, which is going to withstand the test of time. Now, there's a big chance that diets and lifestyles could just be a fad. There are plenty of examples, but I personally am a user of the ketogenic diet, and it's completely changed my life. And so essentially, you got to think, is this a value, or is this kind of just the next hot thing when you're looking at if something is going to be a long withstanding megatrend, or if it's just going to be a fad? Typically, things that will be fads are things that are maybe a certain style. Like, look at fashion. Fashion is purposely change what we want every year. It's always something different just because of the nature of fashion. And then there's also other ways that you can determine if something is going to be a fad or utility. So if you guys want to leave some comments of ways that you can think of, these are just some of the ones off the top of my head. But think about this. Is this a new technological innovation, a new improved process, or is this a new improved type of material? Things that actually are adding value that have taken and making the market better, or is it just a change in consumer taste? This is going to be a big difference if it is a fad or if it is a mega trend, because if you get in early at the right point on a mega trend, it can be great. For example, MCT oil has changed my life, and it works, and it's a part of the ketogenic diet. It's a way to get exogenous ketones and to start burning ketones instantly without having to restrict your diet to simply carbs. So if you're not familiar with the ketogenic diet, I suggest you try it out and go get some bulletproof coffee. So I hope that this is another helpful tool so that you guys can know what to expect within your market. All right, so I've got these written down as a summary here. Now, the last one is, are there recurring purchases? So this is going to extend the product life cycle. If there are recurring purchases, there's going to be people who are just not going to change. Businesses won't change. People won't change. They get stuck into habits. But if it is a one-time use, it is much more likely to have a steeper product life cycle, especially if it's a consumer preference of style or design and not a actual improved process, new material, new technology, which you do have to be dangerous with, as we just spoke about. So if it is a recurring purchase that provides utility and improves quality of life or a process such as MCT oil and the ketogenic diet, that is backed by science, and I've personally used it. So that is going to be something that is going to stick a lot longer versus the fidget spinner, which is a one-time buy based off, is it hot or is it not? And those died like no other. So make sure you take into account if this is a fad or a mega trend, and use some of these, and comment below if you guys have other criteria. I can add these later or add them to the description, but I think it'd be very valuable so that people can know what to expect from the product life cycle. So in summary, the riskiest stage is going to be market development, because you have to generate demand. There isn't the demand there, and you're trying to create a market. The highest profit potential is going to be the growth stage. Now, this is where you're going to be able to build a brand that is going to have withstaying power and going to give you the early high profits right here. And then as prices go down over time, you can invest those profits and build out your brand and grab more of that real estate like we talk about. And you want to grab that real estate within that market. And then as we get into maturity, there's more differentiation. And so essentially you can now take those high profits from getting in the growth stage and differentiate, grab that real estate, and then now keep all of this. And then as it declines, keep your profitable ones and potentially discontinue ones that are not going well. But as a market continues to decline, more and more people drop out, and you will find opportunities to get an arbitrage where there's still market demand, but it's not being met, or there's perhaps some changes, but the market is declining, and you could come in and provide value where others might not do that. And now You want to find a market that is going to have a long product life cycle. Once you get it up and going, it's relatively passive. As long as you keep it going, you make sure that you have a good product and you change to consumer demand by making new variations or new similar products with different features to serve out that market need. So to find the longest product life cycle, you want to go utility or a new improved process versus a consumer taste, because consumer taste, or such as fashion, is going to come and go very fast. And then specifically if it is non-substitutable or not easily substitutable, or it's not in here, but if it's a habit or their mind can take a while to change, that is also going to result in a long product life cycle. So I hope that you guys find a good new market, and these are made all the time within a market. So I hope that you guys are able to find one in this growth stage, or maybe find one of those arbitrages at the end. But like we said, you've always got to provide the highest value product that you can. So no matter what stage you're in, as long as you've done your product differentiation correctly, and you can honestly say that you, for that target market, they would buy yours over all others, you have the opportunity to make money. So this is always changing as the product life cycle is changing. Now, I hope you guys are able to kill it. This is not a make or break. That might be a make or break, would be right here. If there's no demand on Amazon, well, guess what? Amazon is where you go to capture demand. If you want to generate demand, you go to social media. So take that into account. And I wish you guys the best, because guess what? You can't get people to type in keywords. You just can't. You could suggest them on social media and maybe create that demand that way. But on Amazon, we're just capturing demand to grow our business on Amazon and off Amazon. So I hope that this is a helpful framework to take into account, and just watch out for those early stages where there is no demand at all. And I hope you guys find an awesome market to go into. All right, so one final parting word. This was a really cool article that I learned and took some of the information from. Now, this is from 1965, but it is still applicable to this day, because the product lifecycle doesn't really change. Now, if there's technology, of course it does, and the social media has completely changed the game, but still very valuable information in this if you guys wanted to check it out. And if not, it's not required. None of this is required, but if you're really still wanting to learn more, this I found very helpful. So the link for the site is going to be down in the description, and I'll add more cool articles as time goes on.